Okay, so today we've got the quarter dozen, right, with us. We got Pete,
Different than
Ross.
the Dirty Dozen.
Yes, exactly. The quarter dirty dozen.
Yeah.
We've got Pete and Ross, and we've obviously spoken to them individually, but we go way back. And so I thought, let's get them all together and see what kind of chaos erupts from that kind of conversation. So let's, for those who probably didn't watch anything I've already posted, let's reintroduce each of you. So, Pete, I'll go to you first. Introduce yourself.
I'm Pete. Uh, was wow. I,
You
I
don't even know who
I
you are, do
I
you?
don't even know who I am. I don't know if we're doing professional introductions or
Nah, it's just
personal introductions.
hey, I'm Pete, right? And
So so I'm Pete. I'm a seasoned employee benefits professional, and uh,
more like weathered. Weathered
more like
is
weathered. Yes,
yeah.
grizzled or whatever. Um, but yeah, was introduced to everybody. It's almost 30 years ago,
It's
right?
crazy.
Wow.
I know, shocking. It's before we all had gray hair, we all had more
Oh,
hair,
you guys still have hair, so
all that fun stuff. Um, so yeah, it's I'm
he's
just here
dumbfounded.
to
He's
I'm just
dumbfounded.
dumbfounded.
Yeah.
Yeah, th- you introduce yourself and then maybe I can add to it.
Go ahead, Ross. You can go.
Okay. My name is Ross Sachs. I've been in the creative services business field all my life. I met Pete, who introduced me to Bob at a benefits company in Valley Forge, PA. He later transferred to another benefits company in Philadelphia that had been working with Bob, and he was Genesis to get the three of us together.
That's pretty good. And I'm Bob. That's it. That's easy, right?
You don't need any introduction.
No, no. We're gonna try to cover a lot of topics, like I said, and we'll see what kind of chaos erupts. But one thing when I spoke with you both last time, I was thinking we talked a lot about the different jobs we had from this time we graduated college. But one of the things I wanted to ask you was like, what was the weirdest job you've had, or if you haven't had a weird job, what was like the weirdest thing you were asked to do on a job?
Ooh.
Yeah, ooh, is right.
Hmm.
Well, Pete, I even have questions for you about some of your jobs, but
Oh,
I'll tackle this one first.
okay.
So, coming from a college that specialized in pre-med, pre-law, and being an art major in that environment, my parents had no idea what to do with me. And so my father set up interviews with four different businesses that had something to do with art. And one of them was a spray painting vans summer job
For pedophiles.
where
That's what he was
where
doing.
we would where we would tape off the graphics or put a mural on the side. And the guys that owned it were much older than me at the time. And these women that would come by to visit them were out of the magazines. I mean, they were I I couldn't focus on what I was doing sometimes when certain ones showed up. I have no idea. I never learned what they did or didn't do with them. I never saw them doing anything bad, but we did have a parade of very interesting women into a garage out of the way with a spray booth and a bunch of knuckleheads with spray guns. And I just found that to be very interesting.
That is interesting. That is very interesting. I don't think I'm going to be able to top that.
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah.
Mine's a little bit more basic than that, but still, it was interesting.
What happened to you, Pete? What was the weirdest thing?
So, so during high school and college, I was like an IT consultant. So setting up small businesses, computers, and because this is late 80s, early 90s, the computers weren't as sophisticated, so it was just basic plugging things in and all of that. But my father, who was a dentist, had a patient who was a landscaper and owned a landscaping company, and kind of a rough area of Philadelphia is where he kind of stored everything. All the employees would come and all of that. So I was asked to kind of set up a basic computer for them so that they could handle client information or whatever, and schedule the guys who would, work on the different jobs. But little did I know that, especially at that age, that the folks that were doing that were a little bit rough around the edges. And so people would either come in drunk, get into fights in the shop, all of that stuff. And me, as 16, 17 years old and all around that, that was one of my more memorable experiences. And then if I can add a second one to it,
Wow,
also
there's
with
two.
Yeah, there's two, and actually because I was talking about that, it led me to think of this one, which was actually probably a little bit more interesting. Uh, my father, who would get his dental supplies from kind of a small business, whatever, he befriended him, and it was a Holocaust survivor. So small
Oh,
little,
wow.
small little Austrian man who had immigrated to the United States, real thick accent. He reminded me of Mr. Magoo, the cartoon. So he had these really, really thick glasses. He was maybe, I would say, maybe 5 foot tall, if that. But he used to have a house in the Virgin Islands in St. Thomas. And
Was his last name Epstein?
no, close.
So my.
But my father said, hey, listen, if you wanted to have like a free trip between your senior year of high school and college, right? This guy, Mr. Heinsheimer, wanted you to accompany him to deliver dental instruments to a few of the dentists down there. And I was like, yeah, sure. But in the meantime, this guy was every bit a nudist. And so when we got down to his house, right, on the kind of the side of a mountain, he was very, very wealthy and all of that stuff, basically stripped off all of his clothes and just paraded around the whole place naked. And
That
so
is the most bizarre story
it
I've
is
heard.
a bizarre thing. Now, this is before the internet. This is before cell phones. This is before anything. Like, I couldn't reach out to my father to be like, hey, what the heck, right?
Did
And
you know this? Hello?
No, I didn't know this at all. And again, my father knew this guy professionally for probably 30 years before, all of this kind of came about. But my most memorable thing was, back in the 90s, like we weren't exposed to tropical fruit and whatever. So that was kind of my first experience with mangoes. This guy would eat mangoes naked all the time, like the whole time that we weren't like doing work. And I mean, for a good 20 years, I couldn't eat mangoes.
Oh
It was
boy.
just so disturbing. So
Okay,
that's
so
my most memorable story.
what did your dad say when you got back?
My dad basically chalked it up to you need to have learning experiences, right? And before you go off to college, right? He was in the Navy and all of that stuff. I mean, he was just like, you're going to see things, and you grew up in a very sheltered environment. So
Wow.
Wow,
he
I
was
right.
my mother was off. She was yelling at my father about how could you do that? Where did you send him? All of that stuff.
So how
It was only
often
for a
did you go
week.
back to the Virgin Islands?
that was a one and done. That
Oh
was a
my
one and done.
God. That is the best bizarre story I've heard about work.
So I kind of put that out of my mind. There's a lot more that goes along with that story, but I'll save that for another
Oh
time.
my
jeez.
God.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ross, we might need to commission you to paint naked mango guy.
Oh
That'd
boy.
be hilarious.
That'd be a great cartoon.
It'd be a great gift for Pete for a holiday, right?
I'll go back to not eating
That's
mangoes.
too funny. Okay, so we've had weird jobs, but with everything that's going on, and it just economically how things have changed since we were younger, do you guys think that like college is still worth it for kids? Like, should people skip college altogether, do a trade, or just skip it and try to get a job? Is it worth it like it was for us? Because I feel like for us it was kind of a rite of passage. You just had to go get as my grandfather, you got to go get the sheepskin, right? That was it, and then you moved on, whether it was worth it or not. obviously tuition wasn't nearly as expensive as it is
Right.
now, but still it wasn't cheap. I think I left college with like 20,000 in student debt. It wasn't simple, but is it worth it anymore?
Go ahead, Pete. What do you think?
And I asked that, by the way, because we both have
Yeah,
kids, right? We both had
yeah,
kids. We all went to
all
college.
have kids.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
Um, so I think for depending upon the kid, it's absolutely something that they should think about and consider. For other kids, no, I don't. We had these discussions with our kids, early on to basically say, find something that you enjoy, and it doesn't matter what it is, but put put the effort into it and try it out and try to excel at it. um, whether or not that was fixing cars or HVAC or plumbing or electrical. Like, I mean, to this day, like, I enjoy doing like my own work, right? And the only way that I would have learned it would have been, was through my father, right? And or watching other people. But for certain kids, for what they aspire to be, college is necessary, right? They need to do it. And then even me personally, like, I think that everybody should try to educate themselves, and you don't need to have college for that, but I'm a big proponent of just learn, right? Doesn't matter what it is. Us sitting on this podcast, and things that I've had to do for my own, work and company and all of that stuff was, learn how to set up a camera, learn how to deal with lighting, learn how to, do all of these different things. So I'm one to self-educate. Others need to sit in a classroom. So I think it's good for certain kids and totally not necessary for others.
And so I agree with that. From the standpoint of it's individual for sure. However, I was one of those kids that didn't want to go to college because I had skills. I developed art skills, calligraphy. I was doing museum quality calligraphy by 12th grade, started in 8th grade, and didn't think I needed college, thought maybe art school. And I got the deal that said, okay, you're going to college for 1 year. And after that, you decide. And that is the same deal that I passed on to my kids and said, you're all going. But after a year, if you choose not to, then that's on you. But, we'll make you go. We'll make you go the first year. We'll help you find it. We'll finance. We'll take care of all that. But you do need to go, and then you have to make a decision. And the value beyond the education is that, in my opinion, is that it shows a possible employer or others that you might be working with that you started something, you finished something, you showed up, you took the test, you did whatever you wanted to do to accomplish either the whole term, part of the term, 1 year, whatever it is. And I think that helps from the attitude of you can't start too many things and quit. And that that, in my opinion, just changes the perspective on how you'll view everything down the road. So I think college is definitely a personal decision. Trade schools definitely offer a different path, but they have a huge value for the people that are interested in either those trades or are interested in that kind of a business. And to me, there is, if you choose to go to a trade school, that is not a knock. That is just a choice. You still go, you still attend, you still learn, you still, and like Pete said, self learning with the internet is beyond where we ever thought it would be. And I think it's a wonderful thing, and I don't think anybody should stop learning or stop trying to improve themselves or their education. And for a guy like me that's on that retirement path or close to it, all I ever hear at these meetings or talking to my friends is, oh, once you retire, you have all this time to do. And I'm like, to do what? I don't want to just sit there, age, and die. I
Right.
still want to do stuff. So, um, education, self-education, like Pete said, it's huge. I think it's huge. Yeah.
Yeah, the one thing I'd say about all three of us, we are, now that you said that, we're all like big on continuing to learn new things. I mean, Pete, you were always playing with tech. I mean, we've had conversations
I have a
about
lot of hobbies.
the Raspberry Pis that you would set up to do like things like
To automate my pool.
I'm like, why is he doing this? But you are really big on, you have your work, but that's not fully stimulating for you. So you have these other hobbies, I'll call it.
Yeah.
And then Ross, you always paint, right? You were showing us what you were commissioned to do, and of course we'll do the mango painting at some point. Um, and then I like to dabble, like I'm doing this, but we all seem to be very much on a constant learning path. I think part of it is we would all get bored if we didn't. Like
Yeah.
there's this need to have our brain stimulated all the time. So, and other people I've met are very very happy just doing the 9 to 5 and vegging, right? Which would drive me nuts.
So let me add a component to that. Is the three of us having similar aspirations? Does that have anything to do with entrepreneurship?
I think so.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. I think wanting to be your own boss. Although I'll get into that. You're never really your own boss if you always
Right.
have somebody you're
If you're
reporting
married.
to. Well,
True.
that's true too. Yeah. But I mean, in just in general, in the consulting world,
Yeah.
your client is your boss. Now the difference is you can fire a client, so you can decide I don't want to work with this person anymore. And I've actually done that in the past. But if you want to make money, you typically have to like grin and
You got to
bear it.
suck it up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there are benefits to being on your own, and I guess that'll lead me into the next question, which is, people are all three of us are consultants at some level. We've all done it, entrepreneurs, and people always ask me, especially when like they don't like their job. So what's it like to be a consultant? Like, what do how would I do it, right? And that's a really long answer. If you would have asked me 20 years ago, I'd say, oh, you just set up an LLC and you're good to go. Now I'm like, there's a certain personality that needs to be able to do it. There's administration stuff that's just the most boring thing in the world. But what if you were going to give people advice to say, I think I want to go out on my own? What would you tell them? And and we know that there are people that should never do it, no matter how miserable they are at work. And there are people that might be able to do it. But if you were going to say, hey, I want to go, someone wants to say, I want to go out on my own, what would you tell them?
So, Pete, I'll jump in on this first.
Yeah.
So, I recently had a boss of mine say, hey, I need to go out on my own. Now, I'm already out on my own and probably 2 years ahead of him as far as the entrepreneurial road. And he comes to me and thinks that because I've done it, he can do it. And he thinks that it's going to be easy. And he has all this wonderful Armstrong world experience and all this other experience. And he's a very talented guy. As a team, we worked really well together because I was the doer and he was the presenter of the ideas. And so now he has to be everything. And I warned him right from the beginning, you really need to get patient. You really need to get your terms in place. You really need to come to uh, agreement with yourself on how long you'll let somebody not pay you before you go after them, or how long will you let a lead sit before you call it, or how you have to know how you want to handle those things. Because I told them, I said, you're going to get people come to you and they're going to want to use your experience, but you're not on their schedule. You're on your schedule, and your schedule might be, I don't have any other clients but one, so I'm ready to go, 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 go. And they have 15 other things to do, and you're on the back burner. And so he is just now experiencing the drama of, I don't understand these guys. I see him every Friday at breakfast in a men's group, and I constantly ask him, "How's it going? How's the patience level going? How are your terms going?" And he cannot now understand why people aren't just diving right into his, expertise and letting them get helped by this gentleman and everything like that. And I said, it's not you. It's they have just way too much to do. And you have to really come to terms with getting yourself at a happy place. You need to be happy with yourself. You need to be okay with yourself. You need to have things to do. You have to, if you're thinking you're going to break out, go out and make $1 million tomorrow, forget it. You're just, the chance of that, to me, I just haven't seen it.
Right.
So
Unless you take $1 million client with you.
unless you take
That's the only way.
$1 million client with
Right?
you.
Well, it is
But-
funny
and-
too because of the
Yeah.
people have this idea of like, okay, I'm going to hang my shingle and people will just come, like,
Yeah.
because I'm awesome or I know what I'm doing, and then you hang the shingle and then it's crickets,
Yeah.
and then you're like, oh crap, I actually have to work to drum up the business.
And that's everything that Ross said, I mean, is spot on, because maybe when I started my company, it's almost 15 years ago, at the age, right, maybe I thought that I knew everything and, was prolific in setting up the technology and had contacts and all of that stuff. But you very quickly realize that there's a boatload of other things that I need to get smart on. And either I have to learn them myself so that I don't have a hard dollar outlay for it, or you have to have the cash to be able to pay somebody to do it. And so I think that element of patience that Ross was saying is, above all else, one of the key components of starting your own company or going off on your own and being an entrepreneur, is that you have to realize that not everything happens all at once, unless you're really well financed and you've got, somebody to kind of pay those bills and all of that stuff. But bootstrapping it on your own requires a lot of patience.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with both of what you said, because it's not as simple. The nice thing about when you're young, you're dumb enough to do it, right? You just don't think about the consequences.
And you have a lot more energy.
And you have a lot more energy. And then you realize as you get older that you didn't know what you thought you knew. And it is a lot harder. But yeah,
Fewer
that's interesting.
distractions.
Yeah,
Yes.
definitely fewer distractions. And it's always easier when you do it when you don't have kids and a lot of bills. Like I did it when we were married, but we had no kids. And it's a low risk chance. Like you're young. If it doesn't work out, you'll just go get a job, right? But trying to do it after you have mortgage, colleges, retirement, like it's a hard thing to like reinvent yourself midstream unless you really have. I think one of you said that, if you have contacts, then it makes it it makes the landing a little bit softer. It's always better to like go out on your own when you know you have a gig lined up, right? Especially if it's a long-term gig, but because it gives you that soft landing. But it's not simple.
No.
Yeah, it's not simple at all. And do you guys think that AI makes things easier for people to go out on their own? Or because Pete, you mentioned like, hey, I got a hard dollar layout for things that if I don't know how to do it. And there's always, getting the LLC. There's hard costs that are involved with just standing up. But now, with the advent of ubiquitous AI, you can really create, you have a little expert with you, and I'll put that in quotes, for everything that you want to try to do. And you have this sounding board, because we're all solo. And the biggest challenge I found, and I'd love to get your take on this, is when you're on your own, you don't have that person to turn to. Ross, you had a partner early on. So it is nice to like just turn to and say, hey, I'm thinking about this, and then just use that as a sounding board. When you're on your own, you're just like, you either get married to your ideas too much because you think, well, this is brilliant. Like, I just came up with the best idea in the world. Um, or you get frustrated. And I've been frustrated where it's like, I just want somebody to like pressure
Make a
test this.
decision.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Or
or
pressure test
just
it. Like,
yeah, yeah.
yeah. And it's like, if some of the stuff you want to do is a big commitment, like I'm going to go, you built software, Pete. It's like, I'm going to go do this, but I don't know if it's going to sell. I got to build it first to find that out. So do you think that AI has made it easier for budding entrepreneurs or even us seasoned entrepreneurs? Or is it just like, it's just Google on steroids for you?
I mean, I can take a quick my own personal take on that is I think it can be really helpful, but you go down a lot of different rabbit holes that you don't know if it's going to pan out, right? And you're laughing because you've heard me, and we've talked about this ad nauseum, but there's a lot of tools that are out there. Like even before, like I was looking up how to do something, and you search on YouTube, whatever, and people are talking about AI tools that it's like I don't even know the names of half of these things. And like let alone that it could do all of these things. And then you're like, oh, let me watch this video. And you start watching it, and you're like, that's really cool. Then you start watching another video, you research this one product and whatever. And you start going down a path where you're like, these could be really, really helpful, but now I have to learn how to use it. Now I have to think about ways that it could enable me, whatever. And that just takes hours, if not days, if not weeks to get something like that stood up. And then there's something new and shiny that just popped on the market. And now you're like, oh, everybody should be using that. So I think that AI can be really helpful. But at the same time, I also think that it's a huge distraction, right? Just because you're burning a lot of hours just trying to learn these things. And if you're not willing to do it yourself, you're back in that boat of having to pay somebody to then do it. And is that person an expert, or are they just an expert in using AI for you? And then you don't really know what you're going to get at the end
Mm.
result.
So, being the senior citizen here, and being in the marketing field, I did projects before the computer. And I actually was part of the agency that had the first computer in Lancaster and the first Macintosh and all that good stuff before even PostScript. So you had to crash type on a screen to get it to print right, but you had to print it 5 times just to kern your type to get it to look just right. To me, AI is the tool, and Pete was talking about it indirectly the same way. It is a tool, and the computer was a tool, and it made everybody designers. The phone comes out with a camera, it makes everybody photographers. The AI tool comes out, and you can now generate photos. And the next thing you know, all they're talking about is all the photographers are going to lose their jobs, and you're going to have to create images. You still need to know what to do with them, how to do them, how to prompt it, what you should have been telling a professional photographer. Now you got to tell your AI tool. But it is a tool. And again, yes, I use it as a sounding board. Yes, I ask it for ideas or indirect questions to help me generate my own ideas, but um, it is a tool. I mean, I have not really relied on it as a dentist, a lawyer, um, any of the, you know, hey, I wouldn't go out and try to pull somebody's teeth, hire the dentist and let them do their job, that type of
Right.
thing. You still have to get the people that can do the job and do it correctly. They know it from beginning to end. I wish I was a programmer. I wish I knew how to program. If you read everything out there, AI should be able to take my idea and turn it into an app and it's programmed. I just know it's not the case from a standpoint of how do you troubleshoot it? How do you deploy it? How do you improve it? I don't know those things. So I'm still going to get a programmer to do the official programming. And if he uses a tool to help him do his code faster, so be it. But I'm using somebody that knows what they're doing.
Yeah, that's interesting because I was, you know, as a programmer for my most of my life. The hype around is like, oh, you can use AI to write an app, but everyone here, we all know, and you just said it. Well, that's just part of the battle. Like making it scalable, production ready. Somebody's going to support it, troubleshoot it. That's really what a business needs. The app part is the cheapest part typically, or one of the components. Not maybe that's so cheap to build, but once you write it, you now own it and all the problems that come with it, and enhancing it, etc. So when people talk about, oh, I just wrote a simple app, it's just that is they obviously have never done production level application deployments and the problems that go along with that. But I also saw something recently or heard something recently where people talked about when you do these, I don't even know how to word it, but when you use AI to do a certain thing, and this was specifically we're talking about the law field, where they don't want to hire junior lawyers, they just use AI because a lot of that is like research and document scanning and stuff. But it's where you make your bones. It's where you learn about how a law office works. It's where you learn about what people are asking for and looking for. And the guy who was talking, he used to work at Google, and he said the challenge with that is that the law firms are typically rely on their senior leadership to be their best lawyers. That's where they get the most billings. They're the ones that go through litigation. They negotiate the contracts. But you learn from the beginning, the junior all the way up. If you take out that entire layer, how does a person who wants to become the senior lawyer become a senior lawyer anymore?
Right.
And so you lose a whole segment of your training. And so how do you create the next batch of good lawyers? Right. And is it just, they just rely on whatever AI tells them, but then you don't have any experience of like, you've done the research, you've run into problems, because we all know, I'm sure every one of us have experience where you ask ChatGPT or Copilot or Claude something, and it's like, well, that's just fundamentally wrong. Like, that's interesting, but no, that's not how it really works. And unless you know that field, you wouldn't know that that's wrong. You would just immediately go, okay, well, the expert just told me what to do. And so I'm interested to get your take on, I agree with you both. It's a tool. That's how I look at it.
Yeah.
But if someone tries to go into a field that they know very little about, because there's this promise of, well, I've got this expert about everything because it has the combined knowledge of history of mankind inside its system. How dangerous do you think that is for people to just like, I'm going to create a business or create a career of something I know very little about, but I'm okay because I've got this co-pilot with me?
I don't know if I would say dangerous. I mean,
risky, I'll call it.
Risky. I mean, I think that, anybody can do anything and call themselves an expert. We see that on some of the...
Yeah, that's been going on forever.
Yeah. Media and all that stuff. Hey, look at the three of us, right?
Yeah. It's true, yeah.
But, it's risky. I mean, if you think that AI is going to be the thing that is going to, steal the deal, be everything, be the second coming and all of that stuff, I think that you're a little bit misguided there. I think that you need to learn, that it's a tool. People who may be using a consultant or maybe, looking for somebody who exclusively uses AI, or maybe that's like one of the things that they need to vet, is to say, how much AI are you using as part of, this engagement?
Recent big consulting firms have been hit with fines because they've spit out pretty crappy reports that were AI generated. That stuff is usually generated by the low level consulting team.
Right.
And so they're like, oh, we don't need those guys anymore. We can just use AI. But then that shows like there's a gap in, hey, if you want to, it's a mundane task. Writing a report is a mundane task, right? And it's a repeatable task. So I understand why they want to automate it. But if you don't have leadership reading it and going through it, but that leadership has to understand what the heck they're reading. right?
But I mean, you hit the nail on the head. I mean, using the law firm as an example. I mean, you have to, have that level of experience, over a period of time. And that, I mean, that's the definition of experience. It's seeing things multiple times, from different perspectives that allows you to then, you know, be able to know something more than either a machine or somebody else or whatever, you know. Back in IT, there was always like the running joke about, server, should you reboot it or whatever, and somebody's coming in to troubleshoot it, and they just see that the plug is, out of the socket. Like, oh, I just needed to plug it in, right? It's it's simple, but at the same time, if you didn't know to look around the back of the server to plug it in, I mean,
Well, then there
that's
were
the
the times
value.
where if I reboot it, will it come back up?
Well,
Like,
yeah, right.
yeah.
But yeah, I think that we're all pretty much all saying the same thing in that it's, AI has a place, but you need to know where that place is.
I believe that the agents are going to become a little bit more individualized, and therefore, if you can feed in your experience or your documents or your uh, comments on what you like and dislike and things like that, as you develop that agent for you, you can create more of a teammate or you can create more of a sounding board because they've taken the input that you specifically wanted it to track down, or you specifically wanted it to look up, or you specifically shared from your experience. And that, I think, can make it become a little bit more valuable to different industries. But it is a tool. It truly is, and you have to learn how to use the tool and not let it, you know, cut it all out of oh, I'll just do that and be done. And I mean, I have to confess, I had a client come to me and ask for a report, and I allowed AI to, with a good prompt, allowed it to generate a report for me. I then read it and changed some things and asked it to update a few comments, paragraphs, things like that. But ultimately, I printed out the final report and submitted it to them, and they wanted to pay me for it. And I said, whoa, stop. You could have done this. I don't want your money for this. If this helps you understand I can do this and get you to the next level, you can pay me for the next project. But I actually passed on getting paid for a pure AI report that anybody really could have just kicked out and gone. So,
It's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
yeah.
really interesting. And I had something recently happen to me like that, but the ethics you applied there were really, above board. Uh, you did say like they could have done that, but the question I'll ask you is, could they have done it, or did they, when you got that report and then you tweaked it and changed things, was that because your expertise needed to be applied to that?
Yeah.
Could they have
No.
done it? And the reason I say that is the there's the ethical piece that you just brought up. It spat out a report and it did 98% of the work, and then you did the extra 2%. Now you could argue, well, that's really kind of like an amalgamation of all the LLM learnings, and then you just put your secret sprinkles on it to make it a little bit better or very specific. The other side of it is, I create the document, I do 99%, 100% of the work, submit it to the AI, it recommends some changes, and now I did 99% of the work and it did 1%. It's essentially like me handing you a paper and saying, hey, give me your feedback, right?
Mm-hmm.
I wrote it, it's mine. At the end of the day, you might add some really cool or critical components to it that I have missed, but at the end of the day, I can call it my work. The former is like, it's really not my work. It's me having somebody basically hand me a paper and say, hey, Bob, give me your feedback. The person handed to me is AI. And so for me, when I actually was looking for a 90-day CIO CTO plan, but I wrote one because I had one from the past. And then I made some changes and I gave it to AI and said, give me your feedback. And it gave me like 2 things to add. And I was like, oh, that's actually pretty interesting. And I thought to myself, well, what if I just asked it to write one and I gave it to a CEO, am I obliged then to put at the bottom, like, compiled with the help of ChatGPT or something? And obviously, if I was going to an all AI firm, they might be thinking, well, this is great. This guy's using, AI. If I was going to a more old school company, I'd be like, you don't even, you needed help to write this. You didn't actually write it. It's not your plan. And so it made me think about, like, wow, because in the old days, if you needed something, you could still go to Google and say, hey, I need a
Yeah.
template for XYZ. And it would give
Mm-hmm.
you a template and you're just using it. But I don't remember any of us going, oh, by the way, this is a template I used. And it's like, it's still a weird boundary, but now it's like even weirder because, it's basically doing all the work, but I could argue a template was doing a lot of the work. So
Yeah.
it's just like this weird ethical model in my head that was like, ooh, what's the right thing to do when you're doing this?
I think it comes back to some of the side conversations that we've had about AI, in that, again, it comes back to tools, right? If you're leveraging it as a tool to enable you to do your job, right? I think even historically, we all used similar things, like if you were just starting out, right? I remember, you know, when we were putting together like a particular form, a paper based form that we needed employees to fill out, right? With grids and boxes and all of that stuff. We didn't just sit there and start off with a blank, empty page. We literally got stuff from all of our competitors that we could find, right? You would call an insurance carrier to say, hey, I need a claim form, right? Can you send me one? And here's my fax number and whatever. And we collected as many as we could, spread them all out on a table, and said, let's take the best pieces of every single one and try to organize it for our purposes,
We did that when
right?
we designed websites. We would look at other
We did it
people's
when we designed
websites.
website,
Yeah.
right? Like we're we're always using work product, or whatever it is, that it's in your industry, to synthesize it, make it better, and I think that that's part of being a consultant, right? Is you're leveraging what you see out there, and how can I make it better? How can I enrich this? How can I repurpose it for a specific need or a specific purpose? So, depending upon, whether or not you wrote that 90-day CIO proposal, or, job description, whatever it is, from scratch, you opened up a word processor and you sat there and you typed it all in, or whether or not you asked AI to do it, I really don't see that big of a difference. To Ross's example, as a consultant, value-based billing has always been around, right? Oh yeah, it really did take me, 10 hours to do this project because I had to learn it, right? But I'm not going to bill you for my time learning it. So I'm only going to bill you for an hour, right? That's always been the case. Or if you were a consultant and you had a junior level person write the report, you're spending another hour looking at it. Do you bill for your junior level employee? So I don't think that there's kind of a wrong way of looking at it, or using it, and or conveying it to a client, right? It's all about how you kind of spin it.
I mean, it feels different. I don't know why. So to your point, taking all the forms, putting them on a table, or looking at other people's websites and then coming up with your own design is very similar to saying, "Hey, give me a template of a 90-day plan and then give it and then I'll go and make tweaks to it." I and there really isn't, if I look at it, if I'm very objective, I can say there's no difference between getting a pre-filled out 90-day plan and tweaking it versus looking at somebody else's website or somebody else's forums and then creating my own. I'm tweaking their stuff and coming up with my own output, but that was 98% based on somebody or an amalgamation of other people's output, which is what LLMs are. But
Right.
today, for some reason, there's this big ethical cloud over using ChatGPT to give you product, and I think it's because, and I don't know, and I actually don't know. In a way, I don't know why. I mean, part of it I do know why, because in a way you wonder, well, could you produce anything on your own? Could you write the 90-day plan, right? And or could you write the claim form on your own? Could you write a new website on your own? And all of them are really good questions. Like, hey man, if I didn't give you access to Google, could you have or you couldn't call about claim forms, what would you have come up with? Would it be
Right.
even close to what you saw? And you could argue you're being super efficient with your time. I'm like, why would I reinvent a claim form if there's a million of them out there? Let me just tweak and take the best. So why do you think that there's this big ethical cloud over ChatGPT when we kind of been doing it for years, but through other channels that have become, you know, okay, commonplace. It's like drinking. Drinking is okay in our social in the social fabric of our
Construct, yeah.
of everything that we do. But taking drugs is still kind of taboo, right? But it's like using Google to create and give you templates and is perfectly fine. Nobody questions it. But man, using AI to generate something is like, whoa, now you're crossing some ethical boundary. And I feel like it's a little dirty, but I'm starting to wonder, like, why do I feel that way when we've been doing it all along?
It, because I think it depends upon how you're passing it off,
I
right?
agree.
True. True.
That's like students, we have college age kids, whatever. You know, if somebody is, using that to exclusively write a paper and they get an A on it, but then they have an exam that they can't use a tool like that and they can't perform on that exam, that's a problem. There's a disconnect, right? So having a job that requires you to have a certain level of aptitude, expertise, whatever you want to call it, that you you can sometimes use it, but at the times that you can't, can you perform? I think that I may not be
That's fair.
articulating that, but I think that that's kind of the consideration.
All right, let's take
Uh,
that. Let's take your example. I'm a student and I'm using AI because I've got a kid in college. Like they don't write their papers with AI because I've talked to them about that. But let's say they generate a paper all about AI, make some tweaks, blah, blah, blah. And then they have a test or whatever, or they go out in the workplace and they really don't know the material, but
Right.
AI did. And they rely so heavily for AI to give them the answers. So, one, they're not able to critique it. They're not able to look at it critically and go, is this even right? Because I've not spent the time on it. I've relied too heavily on the tool, right? If you look at us going back to when we started, we're like looking at claims forms or websites. We still, at the end of the day, would have to build that website. So we would learn skills to make a new website. Even if I copied Apple, I'd still have to build it and learn
Right.
all the process along the way that I could take towards the next thing and maybe even make more improvements as I'm doing it. Even the claim forms. Yes, you're building a new claim form, but you're going to learn about the claim form because you're still building the claim form, right? You're like, oh, wait, if I did this, what if I put a drop down box, whatever?
Yeah.
Because nothing's getting a final product is not getting spit out, right? I think maybe that's the difference. You still have to do the work to build the final product, a final website. If maybe it would be different, or is there a difference? Maybe that's where I'm getting my wires crossed between show me examples, and then I've got to go build it, versus create me the end product. And I then have because I think there is a lot to say about the doing of something that helps you learn the thing, right? Having to put the time in to actually to draw as to paint the lines, to do the shadowing, right? And I'll give another example here. I know I'm being long-winded. I'm recently trying to teach myself how to draw, right? To how to do stuff. And I've really got into like doing the backgrounds of things. Like I did those drawings of us on for the thumbnail, right? But I'm
I
like,
could tell.
really, I know. My son calls it, that's a really good first drawing. Right? And I'm like, well, you mean it's bad? He goes like, no, it's the first one. I'm like, yeah, but what that means that when I do my 10th one, that will be bad. He's like, yeah. I'm like, there you go. Right. So I've been into all the background stuff and I've realized how hard it is to do shading. And because as you're doing the shading, if you don't stay to the same view perspective, you'll be all over the place because at one minute you're looking at a rock this way and then you're looking at it another way and then you draw it different ways. You're like, oh my God, this is so hard. But the act of, I realized in the act of doing it over and over and over again, you get better at it. It's just like, you get better at the things you practice. So is the problem that it's not so much ethical, although I think there is something about saying, hey, I used a tool to generate this. Is the bigger problem is that you're not learning anything. You're not developing a skill, right? You're not learning how to build that website, create new forms, and then generate your new ideas. Is that a fair assessment that maybe it's that we are removing ourselves from the creative part of doing anything?
So, Bob, I'll just help you out here. Shadowing is always from northwest, and according to National Geographic.
Northwest.
So, whenever we were
Oh,
drawing anything, it was always northwest light. So, think of it as like 10 o'clock.
as a convention. Yeah.
And, and then in the watch industry, it's always 2:10. So,
So interesting. Like there's a
Yeah.
yeah,
thing about
so
it.
So whenever we took photos of watches, it was always 2:10 on the watch face, and
Right.
yeah, it's just little things that you get into that you wouldn't necessarily know unless you were into those things. And again, we're trying to make everybody into everything, whereas and using the AI tool to be that bridge, whereas really, we've all said it a different way. You're using it as a tool for your expertise, or you're using it as a tool for your knowledge, or you're using it for a tool to help your specific interest. I have a client who I designed the package for, and I didn't ask AI to do it, but I did ask AI to critique it. Whereas I have another brand where I don't even help him so much because he tells AI to do it. And I'm like, no, no, you got to do it yourself because you know it better than AI does. Oh, no, Russ, AI can go out and look at everybody else's and see what's going on. And I said, well, then you're just becoming another Me Too, and you're not adding your personality to your particular brand. So that's the two sides where I've done it. I've asked it to critique it. Hey, you can improve here. You could do this. Do you want to? Do you want to, work it? I have to make that decision. Whereas my other brand, I don't even get so involved in them because they're just going to make it. AI will make it. I'll just tell it what I want. It'll go look at everybody else's and copy what they're doing. So and then the results come out. He's having trouble with his brand standing out from the competition because it's like the competition. And the brand that I'm doing the work for and improving on based on AI's as a tool to help, hey, don't forget about this or don't forget about that. Um, that one's unique. Everybody loves it. It stands out. It's different. And you really get right there for me in the creative side, there's two sides of the coin using the AI in the middle. So, everybody has a slightly different, perspective and how they envision using the tool or using the capability.
Yeah, it's just I've really struggled with this whole ethical thing because my kids have asked me a lot. My one son is AI is the devil, right? Because he's in the artistic community, right? And my other one, he's a history, stats, economics guy, and he's like it's a tool for me to do it, but I don't use it to write papers. He uses it a lot to help him understand definitions of things. If someone's saying if he's getting taught something new at school, he's like break this down for me so I can kind of really understand what it means. And
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of where I use it. To just like
Yeah.
I'll submit my work to it and say, tell me. Now, my problem with doing that is, we are basically making the thing that could replace all of us smarter by giving it new information. So it's
Mm-hmm.
like we're like the means of our own demise, which is like really kind of creepy in a way, because now it has my material to contribute to its learning.
Right.
And to your point, Ross, and I talked about this in another video I did. AI will generate this like sameness in everything because it samples from the same pool. Yes, it's a big pool, but everything kind of looks and feels the same. The music, if you look at a lot of AI music, it's kind of the same. Feels like the same chords. It feels very like I don't know. There's not a feeling to it. I'll call it. There's a lot of it out there, but it's kind of creepy. Um, but yeah, I mean, this is a topic for me that I just am really passionate about because I just wonder where the boundary of the ethics are in reality, given we used to do it in a different way with Google, as we talked about. But I
Yeah.
appreciate your input on that. I mean, do you think that there's an industry that's going to get blindsided by AI that no one is seeing? A specific industry, it's like, oh, it's coming.
It's a good question. Um, I,
I think there's a
I,
lot of them. I'm not sure which ones they are. Pete, which ones
right.
are they?
You know what? I have no idea. It's a good question. Like I haven't thought about that in that context. Like what I'm still kind of going through in my mind is your last comment, Bob, about the ethics of it. I'm more concerned about the ethics of the entities that are controlling the
Mm.
LLMs
Mm,
than the individuals that are using it, right? So, you know, a lot of these companies have been taking work product without any compensation from a lot of people, right? Whether or not it's scanning through books or artwork or music or whatever, to then now charge fees to access their models. That to me is a bigger issue than whether or not I write a report to give it to a client, right? Or, and then if another client asks me it and they ask me to do it, on the fly, maybe a report is a bad example, but like our kids in college who are writing papers, if you do it for one class and then you go take an exam and you don't have access to the technology and you can't write, you know, the answer to a question, you're going to fail, right? That's on you. That's a
mhm,
misappropriation of the technology as a tool, right? Same thing with Ross. I mean, if you're designing something for somebody and you are looking for ideas and you're leveraging AI from it, but then you tweak it and that's a work product that you give to a client, I don't personally ethically see that there's a tremendous fault with that. It's no different than if you had a junior level employee to say, produce a couple different drafts for me, and then I'm going to take whichever one I think is the best to then enhance it and then present that to the client.
mhm.
The ethics around all of that to me are less important personally than what are the quote big brothers doing with all of our work product, our materials, our faces, our, lives, that they're using all of that to then enrich themselves.
Yeah, and Pete, that's a great point.
Mhm.
And Ross, you said you have a one client that has AI produce all their own artwork, and obviously it's based off of what everything it's been fed, right? And Disney and Universal are suing uh, ChatGPT because of just the thing you mentioned. Like you're using other people's trademark copyrighted artwork as input to other or output to your product without the being compensated. It's kind of like the early
Mhm.
days of Napster in a way, but it's worse because it's at scale. Now, you could argue, in music, we as somebody who plays guitar, you can play most songs with four chords, right? So you're you're using the same material over and over again, creating a different rhythm or whatever, a different strum or whatever it might be, off of the same four chords. So you could argue like, well, what is replication? What is stealing? If I took 2 pixels from Mickey Mouse and 5 pixels from Spider-Man and I created this art, because ChatGPT probably doesn't know the difference between Mickey Mouse or what, they just know it looks like a shape. It has these vectors. So it takes, well, what is stolen, right? 2 black pixels from this and 6 black pixels from that, and then I create a new object from that, or these color schemes, different color schemes. So I think there's like a blurred line between how much of something do you need to take from it before it's stealing, right? That's the big like, yeah. And then the you've heard the people that create these LLMs, they're like, we turn on these neural networks, we don't even know what they're doing underneath the hood. So like, how would you even know how to compensate Disney or Universal on a request from a prompt that generates a new image? Like, well, how much of that came from Disney? How much of that came from Ross uploading a project? It's just
Mhm.
so bizarre to think, how would you even measure what is considered stolen from these
All
products, because they're coming from so many different basically everything that's on the internet. So that you're right. I'm concerned about the ethics there, but I am concerned that we're not teaching young people, maybe even not young people, that you are sacrificing your ability to create. Because whether you're not like a Ross who just actually does creative work, I think everything that we do is creative. Like you have to come up with creative solutions around benefits, Pete, right? I have to come up with creative solutions around a technology solve, a plan, or whatever it is. So you're in one way or another, you're creating, you're being thoughtful about something. But if you skip that process and rely too much on a prompt, you're not exercising your brain to be able to critically think, to be able to evaluate. So there's the ethical part of these big companies, but there's the damage that I think we're doing to young people to say you can use this tool to think for you, right? So what are your thoughts on that? I know that was a big topic, but like, what are your thoughts on, and how do you manage this with your kids? Like to make sure that they're like using the tools properly and not sacrificing their ability to think.
So just to close out on one of your earlier questions about what industries are going to be sidestruck by um, this technology, I don't think we've really seen it all yet because it's developing so quickly. Transportation, delivery, anything with transportation, security, I think those could have the biggest impact. The military, the anything that moves, because we could have individual transportation, we could have individual flying objects that take packages, which we know they have them, but it could become commonplace. I mean, it's still developing. So I don't think we're completely aware of the industries that are really going to get blindsided by the technology. As far as my kids go and how they use the technology, I have kids that are all out of college and they're all into their careers. And as a parent, I can still encourage open thinking and encourage use of tools as a tool, but they all live out. I don't even know how they're using, what they're using, and and it's not something I should. That would be a great dinner topic, for tonight's Tuesday, Taco Tuesday. So it would be a great dinner topic for tonight at the table.
How about you, Pete?
Um, I don't know because I was just dealing with this
I
technology,
know.
so I kind of lost track of the
Well, no, I mean,
conversation.
I think it's Ross. I think my point really on it was when you're young, you're kind of not working on all cylinders. It's like, oh, something new comes out, shiny object. This is
Hmm.
where it's going. All we hear in the news is AI is where it's at, and you might not know that doing certain things might be sacrificing your own ability to grow and learn. Like I said earlier, we like to learn, we like to do things, but we use the technology to do that because we're old. That's how we do it. We're probably not leveraging it the way it should be used in many ways. But when you're young, you'll just keep using it, but not realize what damage it might be doing. And damage might be a hard word, but like where you might be sacrificing some of your ability to grow and learn because you're relying too heavily on the tool to do all your thinking, right? So that's where we were going, Pete. And it'll be interesting.
Gotcha.
Ross is going to bring it up at Taco Tuesday. So
Right, right,
what,
right,
what's
right.
what's your angle on this?
I mean, I would agree that I think that the more reliant that you become on a tool, right, you lose the capacity to, perform potentially on your own, right? Um, and I'm trying to think of, perfect example. I mean, in
Well, we all
coding,
have
yeah,
all of us have suffered from imposter syndrome, right? Like,
yeah,
man, I'm
uh,
going to get found out. People don't know that I don't know. But how would that feel if you really didn't know and you were asked something, but you needed to use ChatGPT to answer your questions? Like that would be scary as hell to me. Like,
it,
Well, do you
it,
remember the calculator?
right,
that's it. That's what I'm saying. Like in a way, a lot of what we're doing and debating about AI, we already did. We
right.
got calculators, we got Google. Well, first we had what was that one the first engine, the search engine that was
Netscape.
Netscape, but there was a no, there was like
Oh, there's Alta Vista and
Alta
there's
Vista. Yeah, we had all these
yeah.
like Bing, we had Bing, I think still, but it's like
I
now
don't. Nobody uses Bing.
I know. But like we kind of cheated. We had encyclopedia. Like when we were young, we had to go to the library for a day and a half to look up
Right.
encyclopedias and microfiche. My kid was
Right.
like, "What's microfiche?" I'm like, "Oh man, God, I'm really old." But that's anyway. I don't want to belabor it because I've already done it a little bit. I just to me that the whole or we're debating something, but we've already kind of cheated in the past in a way. So is this worse? I think the difference is the reliance on this thing can be a little addictive. And it's there with the way we did it. Google only gave you so much, right? You had to still do the work. But now it'll actually answer your questions and do the work for you, which is a weird line that things have crossed that we didn't have. We still had to learn our craft. And I think nowadays, maybe that's the difference. Nowadays, you don't really need to learn the craft. You can do what Ross's client does. Just type in a prompt.
Yeah, but to Ross's client, yes, you can do it, but just understand that you're only going to get a limited output, right? You're not going to get the level of expertise that Ross brings to the table.
I don't know if
Yeah.
Ross's client realizes that though. It sounds like
And
this guy
maybe
loves this
right,
technology,
but
and
maybe that's a learning experience that that client needs to go through.
yeah,
That's,
that's true.
do
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
yeah,
Right? Just no different than my kids in college, right? If you're going to use AI to write a paper and then you're going to be asked to, take a test and you can't respond in the same way, you're not going to do well,
yeah.
right? You writing code, you know what I mean? To me, code is like a whole different thing. Like nobody, very few times are you going to be in a vacuum where somebody's going to say, write me a whole program or write me a whole snippet of code without any assistance. I mean,
Yeah. No, that's a good point. All right, I have two last questions for you, and then I'll let you guys go. It's 2035. What's the most important skill someone should have?
Ooh, typing,
um, yeah, to me, I think it comes back to learning,
definitely.
right?
And you can say it a lot of different ways.
Yeah,
I agree.
Could be
Okay.
training, learning,
right.
reading. You know,
Yeah,
it's you gotta clear your schedule so that you can watch a video and comprehend. You gotta learn it. You know, there's learning. Learning's gonna get a little deeper until
right.
they figure out a way to transport that. You know, like in the Matrix. Hey, I want to do kung fu, and they
Yeah.
injected India.
He's like, I know kung fu.
Yeah.
Okay, last question. If you had zero responsibilities and money was no obstacle, what would you do right now?
Travel.
Okay. For mangoes and Virgin. Went full circle on that one.
Exactly, right? No comment there. Yeah,
How about
travel, just yeah, experience different new things.
you, Ross?
Yeah, I think I'd stick to my collecting. I would work on building that collection because it would cost more money because I'd get better. Since I spoke last, just to tie into collecting. So, Pete, I don't know if you know this, but I collect uh, original art illustration.
No,
And one of the guys I collect had a masterpiece, and he only has like 4 or 5 masterpieces. One came up for auction. I told everybody in my family I was going to get it. I was going to win it. How much do you think it's going to go for? Oh, it's going to go for 15 to 20,000. And I got the 15,000, and I couldn't bid beyond 15,000, so I lost because the very next bid won. So
oh,
there's only two of us after it, and so therefore, if the funds were unlimited and I didn't have to worry about the money, I would be able to get those, and I would dump all the lesser pieces and just upgrade my passion for the collection.
What
So,
classifies one piece as a masterpiece? I'm curious.
what it was used for, how big it is,
Oh, okay.
things like that. In illustration, it's all about how it was used. And that comment, how it is used, kind of portrays what we're talking about in the sense of how do you use your tools, or how do you use Gemini or Claude or whomever. It's really about, how do you use. So back then in print, you had Saturday Evening Post, and that's how it was used. It was printed in that particular publication, and that was communication to the masses at the time. And then TV came along and eliminated that, and photography came along and eliminated art. It all evolved. This is all, like Pete said this, like right in the beginning, this is all part of an evolution of the tool, and how do you use it, and what are you going to use it for, and how are you going to influence it, and all that good stuff. So to your point, Bob, we're repeating, and it continues to repeat. We're just changing the tools out.
Yeah. Yeah, you're probably right. Well, it was really good talking to you both,
Yeah.
and good catching up.
Thank you.
And I will connect with both of you. And if we don't talk between now and then, have a great holiday. Merry Christmas.
Yes.
All
Same.
that. Happy
Great.
Hanukkah.
Yes.
And we'll talk soon, gents.
All
Sure.
right. See ya.
And Russ, look,
See you guys.
catch up. See you guys.
All right.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye bye.